All right, everyone. A very, very good evening to all of you. So, this tutorial is basically going to be a very general understanding of the very concept of government, right? So, I'm pretty sure all of you at some point of time in your lives, even though you've just entered grade 7, you have heard of this term called government. And perhaps if you would have reflected on it a little bit more, you would have come across a lot of different instances where this term was used. Maybe in the newspapers, maybe in podcasts, maybe on news channels as well. Right. So let us begin with a very basic, rudimentary understanding of what precisely is a government really. Right. So a government is almost like a company. Okay, it is an entity. You can call it an organization, but we'll just call it an entity, right? It is an entity. It is a non-living thing essentially, right? So okay, it is an entity that exists in any nation, right? It exists in any nation, and the very basic idea for the existence of a government is that this particular entity that I am talking about will perform certain basic duties that are necessary for the growth and development of the nation, right? So every nation strives to progress, strives to become a developed nation, it strives to grow, so on and so forth, right? So that is what the government tries to do. It tries to help the nation progress, right? And of course, not to mention, it helps to protect the rights of the people, right? Fundamental rights that we are aware of: right to equality, right to liberty, right to life, right to education, so on and so forth, right? And we know that how does a government actually come into existence? Usually, in representative democracies such as ours, right? What are we? We are a representative democracy, right? So, in a representative democracy such as ours, since we cannot directly form the government, like your father, mother, me, my neighbor, my neighbor's uncle, we just can't directly jump into the parliament and start making laws. We need to follow certain protocol, right? So what we do instead is we elect politicians, right? We elect representatives, right? We vote in elections for a reason, right? Because we elect our representatives, and then these people in turn who we are electing, they go on our behalf, and then they create laws on our behalf. So this is representative democracy, wherein we are electing our own representatives to represent us in a democratic setup, right? So now this is basically a government. As I mentioned, it is an entity which is elected by us, right? So and it does XYZ things. Right, now what precisely are these XYZ things that I'm talking about? So what is really the role of this entity that I'm talking about? Right, it's a very generic or a very general understanding that we are going to be looking at. Right, it is responsible for a plethora of things, but we'll be looking at some of the major ones, right? And of course, as I rightly mentioned before, सबसे पहला चीज, the first and the most important thing is that it is responsible for the development of the country, right? It provides a vision for the country. It provides a roadmap of where the country needs to go in the next 20 years or in the next 50 years, so on and so forth, right? So it is primarily responsible for the development of the country, right? And the government is the one who takes initiatives to develop the infrastructure of the nation, right? So road building, for instance, building and construction of highways, right? Hospitals, schools, public healthcare centers, and so on and so forth, right? So who is the entity that is creating all of this? It is the government, right? Okay. And then of course it aims to provide certain facilities for the general well-being, right? Like you have your well-being classes in school. So very similar to that, the government also ensures that it has certain structures in place that will ensure the well-being of all citizens, such as affordable public health care, like government hospitals, for example, cheap and friendly, pocket-friendly electricity being given to people, not overly priced, for instance, Right, clean drinking water is a must for people to survive, without which they cannot really live. The aim of a government is to make sure that all of these things reach the maximum number of people in the country, like to the best possible extent. Okay, and of course, this apart from this, this is something that you might have heard a lot of times, right? कि जो economy है, right? It helps to take care of the economy. Basically, how the government takes initiatives to set up more and more industries, to attract foreign companies to come to India and manufacture their goods. Apple iPhones, for example, right? Very recently, I read that Apple has decided to manufacture iPhone 13 in India, is what I just very recently read. So iPhone 13 is now going to be manufactured in India. So now it's a very logical thing that the government has enabled the manufacturing of the iPhone 13 model in India, because of which there will be factories set up. Apple will set up its own factories where iPhone 13 will be manufactured, and if factories are being set up, people are gonna get एम्प्लॉयमेंट, राइट? लोगों के पास क्या होगा? लोगों के पास एम्प्लॉयमेंट होगा. लोगों के पास अगर एम्प्लॉयमेंट होगा तो लोगों के पास मनी होगा. मनी होगा तो दे आर गोइंग टू स्पेंड दैट मनी, एंड दैट मनी विल अगेन move around in the economy itself, right? So this is how the circle of economy essentially goes, right? So ठीक है, so basically creation of more and more industries, manufacturing plants, so that the country advances financially. I just gave the iPhone 13 example, right? And of course the government also controls the banking system of the country. So for that we have a beautiful central bank called the Reserve Bank of India. ठीक है, what is it called? It is called the RBI. You must have seen advertisements on television as well, right? KL Rahul is the brand ambassador, and Umesh Yadav as well. They are both cricketers. Anyway, whatever. So Reserve Bank of India is the central bank of India, right? One of the finest institutions, financial institutions that we have in the country, right? ठीक है, that is one thing. So it helps to take care of the economy, right? And then of course with the help of armed forces, क्या रोल होता है गवर्नमेंट का? हमारी बॉर्डर्स की सुरक्षा करना, टू मेक श्योर दैट द बॉर्डर्स ऑफ द नेशन आर प्रोटेक्टेड फ्रॉम फॉरेन इन्वेजन्स एंड अटैक्स, राइट? पर्टिकुलरली वी यूजुअली फेस थ्रेट एट आवर बॉर्डर्स फ्रॉम आवर नेबर्स देमसेल्व्स, पाकिस्तान एंड चाइना. China tries to invade, not invade basically. China tries to create unrest at the Sino-Indian border, that is the Indo-China border, in the Arunachal Pradesh region. Whereas of course we know how it works with Pakistan in Kashmir, right? So again, the government plays a huge role there to protect our borders, right? And of course हमेशा किसी भी गवर्नमेंट का ये पर्पस रहता है, ये गोल रहता है कि वेलफेयर होना चाहिए सिटीजन्स का, राइट? ऑल द सिटीजन्स शुड लिव कंफर्टेबली एंड बी प्रॉस्परस. दैट इज अ जनरल आइडिया, राइट? नो गवर्नमेंट विल से कि आई वांट माय सिटीजन्स टू बी अनहैप्पी. आई मीन दैट इज वेरी अब्सर्ड, राइट? So over here also, when we talk about welfare, the government has a huge role to play in that, because the government, in order to ensure welfare, makes certain laws and policies for all its citizens, right? In order to ensure that it is a welfare state, ठीक है, where every single individual, every single citizen, every single person is taken care of, right? And of course, in times of natural disasters like earthquakes, tsunami, floods, the government again intervenes and provides people with necessary aid, right? ठीक है, so these are the basic functions of the government. I don't think this is anything is rocket science over here. It's quite simply understandable. ठीक है, so this is government for you and its role, right? Now if I talk about what exactly is the structure of the government in India, and I'm going to talk about it from the Indian perspective, ठीक है? तो इंडिया की अगर बात करें तो मोटा मोटा, राइट, देर आर 3 मेजर लेवल्स ऑफ गवर्नमेंट्स. हाउ मेनी लेवल्स? देर आर 3 मेजर लेवल्स ऑफ गवर्नमेंट्स, राइट? सो यू रियलाइज दैट देर इज नॉट जस्ट वन सिंगल सिस्टम अलोन, ठीक है? there is not just one single system of government alone. In fact, there are three separate systems or levels of governments, right? So now you need to, I'm going to introduce a new word for you over here. So in this particular system, as you can see, there is level 1, level 2, and then there's level 3 going forward. Now the power is not concentrated in the hands of just one government. ठीक है कि एक ही गवर्नमेंट है, उन्हीं को सारा पावर दे दिया, वही सारे डिसीजंस ले रहे हैं. That is not the case, right? So it is, the power is not concentrated in the hands of just one government, and as you can clearly see, it is divided between two or more different layers or levels of governments, right? So this particular system of governance is called the decentralized system of governance, right? What is it called? Please remember this word. It is called the decentralized system of governance. ठीक है? We'll just have a very quick look at what these three levels are going to be, right? So we'll start with the first level and the uppermost level, which is the central government, right? Central government, as the name suggests, makes laws and policies that concern the entire nation, right? Be it Andhra Pradesh, be it Karnataka, Gujarat, so basically the entire nation. And of course, the central government is headed by the Honorable Prime Minister, who at this point of time is Mr. Narendra Modi, right? ठीक है, so that is central government for you, right? Then of course at the next level you have state governments, ठीक है, जो हर एक state में होती है. So you have the state government of Karnataka, state government of Odisha, state government of Bihar, state government of Jharkhand, so on and so forth, right? So each state has its own independent state government. That is very important, ठीक है, which is responsible for forming laws on local issues. अच्छा, तो महाराष्ट्र का state government महाराष्ट्र के जो लोकल इश्यूज हैं उस पे लॉज बनाएगा. गुजरात का जो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट है, गुजरात के जो लोकल इश्यूज हैं उस पे लॉ बनाएगा. हरियाणा विल डू इट्स थिंग, पंजाब विल डू इट्स थिंग. सो यू गेट द पॉइंट, राइट? सो ऑन लोकल इश्यूज पर्टेनिंग टू दैट पर्टिकुलर स्टेट, राइट? वेरी 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 क्रिटिकल टू अंडरस्टैंड. एंड ऑफ कोर्स it is not the prime minister over here, it is the chief minister of that state who is responsible, right? So say for example, Mr. Yogi Adityanath, right, is the chief minister of Uttar Pradesh. Mr. Arvind Kejriwal is the chief minister of Delhi, right? Then you have so you get the point, right? Mr. Stalin, say for example, is the chief minister of Tamil Nadu, right? So and Mamata Banerjee is the chief minister of West Bengal. So just a general idea, right? So every state has its chief minister, who's basically the head of the state government. ठीक है? And final level पे जब हम आते हैं, now you have center, you have state, and it just does not end there. In India, we have this very special concept known as the local governments. ठीक है? Local governments are divided into two parts. Very simple. ठीक है? Local governments are divided into two parts. One is the local government for urban centers, be it towns, be it cities, urban places. तो अर्बन लोकल गवर्नमेंट में आपका म्यूनिसिपैलिटी आता है और म्यूनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन आता है, ठीक है? दीज आर द अर्बन लोकल गवर्नमेंट, सो इन अर्बन प्लेसेस. एंड देन यू हैव द रूरल लोकल गवर्नमेंट, रूरल यानी कि विलेजेस, ठीक है? रूरल यानी कि विलेजेस. एंड इन द विलेजेस यू हैव दिस ब्यूटिफुल इंस्टीट्यूशन कॉल्ड द पंचायत, right, or the Panchayati Raj as it is called, right, which are found in villages. They are also governments, but they are local governments, and they are found in villages, and they are responsible for taking decisions to ensure the welfare of people at the local village level. ठीक है? तो अर्बन लेवल पे म्यूनिसिपैलिटी है, म्यूनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन है, और रूरल लेवल पे क्या है? पंचायत है. ठीक है? आई एम गोना एंड दिस हियर. ठीक है? आई होप दिस गिव्स अ वेरी जेनेरिक basic rudimentary understanding of what the government is, what the function of the government is, and what the levels of the government are in India, right? I hope to continue this discussion in the classroom. Please do reach out in case of any queries. Thank you and have a good day.